You one day in a little toy shop, buy a bag of balloons with the money we got, set them free at the break of dawn, till one by one they were gone. Back at base, bugs in the software flash the message, something's out there, floating in the summer sky. 99 red balloons go by. It's red alert, there's something here from somewhere else. The war machine springs to life, opens up one eager eye, focusing it on the sky where 99 red balloons go by. 99 Decision Street, where 99 ministers meet to worry, super scurry, call the troops out in a hurry. This is what we've waited for, this is it boys, this is war. The president is on the line as 99 red balloons go by. 99 nights of the year, right? Super high-tech jet fighters. Everyone's a superhero, everyone's a Captain Kirk, with orders to identify, to clarify and classify, scramble in the summer sky as 99 red balloons go by. As 99 red balloons go by. 99 dreams I have had, in every one a red balloon. It's all over and I'm standing pretty in this dust that was a city. If I could find a souvenir just to prove the world was here, and here is a red balloon, I cry for peace and let it go.
It's a very simple choice as I see it, a choice between love and hate. It's wanting the best for our brothers, not building a wall, but a gate. It's a very simple choice as I see it, choosing compassion and care, a future of hope for all children, of hope, not of despair. And I will not brand it an impossible dream, for love is an act of the will, and of all of us will love over hate. If we all refuse to just accept fate, hope could triumph still. It's a very simple choice as I see it, a choice between light and dark, as a lighthouse shines through the darkness, as a lantern flares from one spark. It's a very simple choice as I see it, to be that light in the night, to burn bright while the storm rages round you, a safe harbour from the fight. And I will not brand it an impossible dream. To be a light is an act of will. And if all of us shine one small light in the dark, if we all in our own lands are striking a spark, light could extinguish the darkness still. It's a very simple choice as I see it, a choice between life and death, families thriving and happy, or parents, children left bereft. It's a very simple choice as I see it, to choose life for every soul, to see all of the world as our brothers, every death as a loss to the whole. And I will not brand it an impossible dream, for to live is an act of the will, the hardest thing each time the world knocks you out, to try one more time, to take one more bout, cheats death of its victory still. It's a very simple choice as I see it, a choice between war and peace. Children playing unafraid in the garden or in the ashes of what once was a street. It's a very simple choice as I see it, to choose diplomacy over war, to talk rather than bombing the other, to build a better life for us all. And I will not brand it an impossible dream, for peace is an act of the will. It is not the deluded hope of a child, nor the province alone of the meek and the mild, but an act of courage still. So I will not brand it an impossible dream that every war should cease. So I stand against no one but conflict. I endorse no party or person. I simply stand for peace. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, guys. Well, you've got us two today, because as we all know, Ian's on his holidays. And I wanted to start with something, but I didn't want to plagiarise. Well, it's not quite plagiarising Ian, because it's the Declaration of Arbroath, but I didn't just want to copy that. But how are you doing today, Glenn?
I'm doing all right. I've got my daughter and grandson up for the weekend. So there's been various amounts of chaos of one form or another. At the moment, I've got them all corralled in the living room where they're jumping around and waving a glue gun about. Apparently they're crafting. So whatever mess that leaves behind, I'll deal with. Much as we are currently dealing with the mess that Donald Trump and
Yes.
and Israel are leaving behind. So it's a microcosm of that almost, except no one's actually died yet. So fortunately, but apart from that, I'm fine.
That is always a plus that no one's actually died yet. Yeah, well, we're going to let you sort of lead the first half of our conversation, because there is so much going on. And you said to me on Friday, I've got I hate to think how many bullet points you're up to now, but there is so much going on.
Yeah, I missed a lot yesterday. I was quite distracted, but I've skimmed through this morning to see if there have been any major developments, and it's basically just it's one of those ongoing kind of days. So looking at the week as a whole, we've seen several things that have made you go sort of, what the hell is going on? Because right now we are deep in the information war. We're deeply entrenched in the smoke screens and the lies and the distractions and everything that is now has been for quite a long time a tactic of warfare in order to I'll use Ian's word that I like, obfuscate everything that's going on. Okay, so this week we saw a KC-135 tanker came down over Western Iraq. Now this is and was said to be an accident. I've no information to the contrary. I don't have any information that it was intercepted or shot down in any way. It very well, may have been an accident, because the refueling process for in-flight refueling is quite a delicate process. and takes a hell of a lot of training for pilots to be able to do it. It's a bit like docking the space, something with the space station. You get it wrong, the consequences can be disastrous. And the US has actually confirmed that all 6 crew members on that tanker have been killed, and they have released photos of them. So that was one of the sort of first things I noticed that had gone on. Now Iran, I have no slides for this, which is very unusual for me, but we decided to do it in this format. So Iran has been using what it looks like Iran has been using are larger payload missiles, possibly 1 to 1.5 ton payload, which is, well, that's bigger than a 2,000-pound bomb. It's perfectly possible for Iran to do this. It has 5 or 6 classes of missiles that are capable of carrying that kind of payload. And obviously that's a lot more devastating than smaller munitions. Now, once again, as I said, with the information war, Israel have been really trying hard. They've been trying to blanket out any coverage. They themselves release no official footage. Whatever comes out on the internet, as we were saying the other day, tends to be a mix of some truthful videos taken by people on the ground, quite a lot of AI fakery. So it's, again, there is just this general air of not quite knowing. The Iranians have released footage of munitions landing on Tehran and in Tehran's surrounding regions. We don't have much from outside of that region because Iran is a huge country, and most of its critical military installations lie out in the central area, because Iran is a kind of country that is surrounded by mountains but has a central sort of desert plain in the middle. So an awful lot of its infrastructure is in that desert, and an awful lot of it is buried within the mountains of its border area. So we don't have an awful lot coming out of there. So what we're seeing is what's coming out of Tehran. Now, the elephant in the room, you might say, the one that everybody's been in talking about and posting about and sharing is the news that apparently Netanyahu is dead. Now, once again, there hasn't been confirmation of this by the Israelis. But you wouldn't expect that. You wouldn't expect Israel to come out and say, "Oh, our prime minister's been killed." They will try to, if this is the case, they will try to keep this under wraps, under cover, as long as possible, really. But we've seen now you've probably all seen the 6-finger video, which, when zoomed into one of the hands, you could quite possibly be AI. I've seen other explanations. I've heard other explanations. Then there's the whole teeth thing, with his teeth appearing to appear, disappear, he has more teeth than less teeth. There is something very, very dodgy about that video. But Israel itself said it didn't produce that video. It didn't come out of the Prime Minister's office nor any government department. So therefore, it's thought it's been put together by someone else. So again, it's very hard to draw any conclusions. Apparently, Netanyahu put out a statement on Thursday, or actually held a press conference, but there was no video of that press conference that I've seen, and I haven't seen any of the reports that came out of that supposed press conference. So once again, it's hard to tell in this thick fog of this war. So I suppose it's a question of just holding on and trying to find out. What I think we can confirm, and I think Israel may have confirmed this itself, is that Ben Gvir, the national security minister, has been killed. This seems to be accepted. And then we've got a whole list of other names that have apparently been killed. I'll just run through them. Ben Gvir would have, if Ben Gvir has met an unfortunate end, then I would be very happy. He's probably, well, he's right up there on the top of my list of the worst people in this world. A rampant Zionist, a rampant racist, a rampant violent encourager of settler violence. He is by any measure an extremist. He is an extremist. If he was of another faith, he would be loudly condemned by every newspaper and every media agency in the world, but he's not. Okay. Then we've got David Bamia, who was the head of Mossad. Apparently, he has been killed. We've got Shlomi Binder, who is the head of Israeli intelligence. We've got David Zinni, who was the chief of the general staff. And we've got Tomer Bar, who was the head of the Air Force. Now, some of these have been confirmed by the Israelis. So there's a good chance that list is fairly accurate. But as for Netanyahu, it's not quite so clear at the moment. Okay, some people are completely convinced, and some people are, slightly skeptical. But as I say, I can't comment on this. Now, what I have seen in several posts by the Iranians are hints towards what their possible demands would be in order for a ceasefire or a peace deal. Now, once again, I can't confirm that everything that I've got down here is actually one of their demands. Some of them certainly are, because I've seen confirmation of it. But I just like the list, and it's a kind of shopping list of all the things that I would like to see, and Iran would like to see. So I'm going to read you that list, but I cannot offer you any guarantees that is 100% genuine. We have to be very careful about these sources. But I'll read you the list just for entertainment purposes, let's say. Okay. So this is supposedly what Iran has released as its conditions for a ceasefire towards Israel and America. And it's a list of 9 things. And number 1 is hand Netanyahu over to the ICC, International Criminal Court. If he's dead, then that's going to be quite difficult. If he's not, that is going to be quite difficult because I can't see either Israel or America agreeing to that. So that you can put an X next to. In fact, I will do. I'll mark them with an X or a tick, the ones I think that are possible. So I don't think that is ever going to be possible. All right. Number 2 was withdraw Israeli forces to the October 7th borders in Gaza. Now, this is possible. This is doable. Whether or not that condition would be agreed to is negotiable, I would say. It just depends how much Israel is willing, or how desperate Israel has become. So I'm going to put perhaps a question mark against that one. Number 3 was cancel Trump's Gaza plan. Now, this is one I'm all in favor of. It's a very bad plan. It's more like a commercial planning for an amusement park than it is any real solution to the problems that are in Gaza. It doesn't seem in any way to majorly benefit the Gazan people, but you know what you expect when you put Jared Kushner in the mix. You're just going to get development. So again, I would put that down as possible, but not probable. So we're already we're already starting to wade into the swamp of these demands not being met. This is definitely one that the Iranians have said. Lift all sanctions and return frozen assets, frozen funds. Like virtually every other country on earth, Iran has got funds lodged for trade with other countries. But those funds have been frozen for a very long time as part of the sanctions, much like Russia's frozen assets. So I think that I'm going to put that one down as possible, as probably a red line for the Iranians as well. Probably something that they want to see, because they have been under increasing sanctions since 1979. Number 5, recognize Iran's right to have a nuclear program. Now, as I was saying the other day on this one, Iran's nuclear program was basically given the blessing by America. It was something that they seemed quite happy with and even helped with, but only when the Shah was in charge. So this is something that started way back when the Shah was in charge. And in fact, Iran's first civil nuclear power station was built during the time of the Shah, but also with Russian cooperation. So there was much more of a cooperative atmosphere back then between the Shah's regime and obviously with America. But once the revolution happened, Iran's nuclear program was put on hold for quite a long time, and then restarted gradually. So recognize Iran's rights to have a nuclear program. I think that's actually been agreed prior to this point. The only sticking point was the enrichment. The negotiations were more about Iran's basic willingness to say yes, we will stop at, say, 64% enrichment, which is the highest that you need for a civilian nuclear program. But given Trump's attitude, I could see that would be perhaps off the table as well. So I'm going to put an X next to that one. Then we've got leave Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen. Yeah, that's an X, because Israel has absolutely no intention of leaving Lebanon. They have all but announced that they're gonna take over southern Lebanon. and probably start to push even further. Perhaps they're going to start threatening Damascus. So definitely in terms of Lebanon, no. Syria, the little bit that occupies there, probably no. Yemen, I don't know where that comes from. Leave Lebanon. Leave Yemen, sorry. As far as I know, Israel has no presence in Yemen, and neither does the United States, unless they're talking about any possible military ships within the Gulf of Aden, let's say. So, yeah, strange one. So that makes me think that may not be a genuine demand. Number 7, evacuate all US bases from Saudi Arabian soil. From Arabian soil. Sticky wicket, this one, because I think many of the Gulf states would actually like to see that. I think they've learned that America was not there to protect them, as it said. So with Gulf states cooperation, I think that might be possible. And then we've got Trump must publicly apologize to Khomeini. That ain't going to happen. Trump's nature is not one of dishing out apologies. And then Iran must receive compensation for every sanction ever imposed. God knows what the total of that would be. So again, a very difficult condition to meet, and I'm going to put an X by that one. So we've got a lot of X's on there. I don't know. What do you think, Alex?
Well, before I get on to the demands, just want to sort of wading on the whole Netanyahu elephant in the room, and it is.
Yeah.
I'm getting things sent to me sort of regular from different viewpoints and different things. I don't buy the 6 fingers. To me, it just looks like a part of his palm, but the video can still very easily be AI, and the fact that it's not distinguishable whether it's a finger or his palm suggests the whole thing is that kind of unreal AI thing. But I have seen one bit sent to me that gives me question and makes me think, interesting. And it was a video of somebody discussing, I guess the original was probably a tweet, and it was from a Turkish journalist, or alternate journalist, I don't know quite who or what, but they said Netanyahu died on March the 11th in a hospital in Germany. May he rest in abundant fire. So in other words, may he burn in hell, I guess. But there's somebody who tries to translate this, and they say, according to the sources, the shelter where he was sheltering on the 2nd of March was hit by a Fatah missile, and he was basically put into an artificial coma and evacuated out. Yeah. And they say that as we know, the plane, the Wing of Sion, was seen in Berlin in Germany about a week on. And it basically sort of says that they basically conclude that no one else in Europe would take him, and Germany was the only place that would take him. But I read something else into that. And this is why, to me, that has almost a ring of truth. Because remember the hospital, the US military hospital, that was suddenly not taking any pediatrician services, or suddenly not thing. If there is any truth in this, then I'd say it's not Germany was the only one that take him. I'd say the US have effectively taken him to a US military hospital in Germany. Now that may be, it still may be rubbish. There still may be nothing in it. Yeah. But that did give me pause when I read that, because I'm thinking, hang on a minute. Is this really what's going on? Is it basically been airlifted out of there by the Americans and sent to the American military hospital in Germany?
That is it. I did see that. I saw I probably read the same or watched the same piece that you did on that. And I also watched a piece which purported to be unless it was the same one, because they all run into each other, of men carrying basically wrapped up cloth, but what looked like bodies inside sheets. I saw that. Now there was no real clarification as it was purported to be after the attack on Netanyahu's offices or compound or something like that.
Yeah.
So again, it continues to be claim and counterclaim, and this entire mud that we're trying to look through. So the waters are very, very muddy on this subject, aren't they? Yeah.
They definitely are. It could go either way. It could be either way. Could be true. We've all got our preferences for what's the truth, but what actually is the truth is a different matter.
Yeah,
but
if wishes were horses. Yeah,
that one just did kind of think, hang on a minute, and it wasn't what they were saying. It was kind of different to what they were saying, but it made me think, because they did sort of suspend services. Did they not want so much attention? Did they have reasons for controlling the security of? But I don't know.
I've seen 7 out of 10. Sorry. I'm not sure how much the Israelis even know, because I have seen that 7 out of 10 of the Israeli TV channels are actually off air, that they're not broadcasting. So what channels they are being able, get access to, I'm not sure, but that was another report book. Sorry, carry on.
That is interesting, actually, because if 7 out of 10 is off air, that's suggesting again something, and we are not. The one thing we aren't seeing is any truth coming out as to what's being hitting Israel, and there's been deliberate attempts. There's been very clear and deliberate attempts to stop information getting out, and sort of penalising anybody who does put that information out. And that wouldn't necessarily stop the channels from broadcasting, but it would do if they'd been hit. And the one thing Israel did do early on is target at least one, maybe more than one, of the Iranian news channels. So it wouldn't be beyond the thing that they would have responded in kind.
No, not at all. Yeah, you're right.
But those demands, and I don't know what the veracity of them is. Like you say, some of them seem a little bit strange. There's definitely backup for the idea of Iran demanding reparations. That's definitely been said on official channels as well.
Yeah.
But the bit that gets me is not even the detail of it. It's that if they are at the point of coming out and saying these are our demands for a conclusion, for a ceasefire, that's not what Trump's saying. And we know what Trump's saying isn't the truth, but Trump is saying we've won, we've finished it, we've done all our objectives, we need an unconditional surrender. Now, if it's not even attack and counterattack. If Iran are talking about conditions, that's not them giving us unconditional surrender. That's the US surrendering, suggesting what seems more and more likely, that Iran are winning on the ground or in the air.
Yeah, I think that's and also I think it's never clear. It's never entirely clear what the objectives are in this so-called war. 1 minute it's supposedly regime change. Next minute it's supposedly we've got to destroy Iran's nuclear program, which Trump says we've already done, but now we've got to do it again. And there seems to be, if there is an end game, if there is some kind of end to this war, then I'm not seeing it. And I'm not seeing it from Iran. Iran has shown absolutely no signs of capitulating in any way, and if anything, their rhetoric has hardened, and their determination seems more than ever. So, Trump can declare victory and walk away anytime he likes, but that's turning leaving into a victory. You know what I mean? That's,
yes. But he managed to do that with the whole Yemen scenario when they limped back away from
we left.
when they limped back away from the Red Sea, and then they declared how they'd won and Yemen surrendered, and these were the conditions they'd agreed to, sort of scenario. So he's good at turning defeat into victory, not in the literal sense, just in the way they control the narrative.
Yeah. There can never be seen to be any form of American climb down, or the fact that they might be struggling in any way whatsoever to pursue their war aims. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Let's just plod on a little bit with moving on to the next big topic, really, and we've sort of chatted amongst ourselves about this as well. And that was earlier in the week. There were reports that the US is talking about a non-voluntary draft, which will be entirely necessary, I think, given the state of America's forces, if it wished to pursue a ground war. If it wanted to commit troops onto his Iranian soil, this really does open a whole can of worms. I mean, that would drag America into a protracted, long-term war. I mean, look at Afghanistan. That took 20 years before the Americans left and declared victory. Ran away, leaving everything behind, and said, "Well, it doesn't matter. It's only 80 billion or whatever, worth of arms and helicopters and weapons." But no, we won. We definitely won, and we wanted the Taliban in charge all along, didn't we? Yeah, that's what we wanted. So we've achieved our aims yet again. So yeah, I think I know, because if America is anything like the groundswell of opinion in Britain, that the American people are not willing. They are not willing to send their sons and daughters to die in yet another foreign adventure for aims and goals that are unclear, for which there is no strategy that has been explained to anyone, and the whole thing is being run by people who don't have any experience in any of this. There are very few combat generals who have actually seen combat left in the American army. Many of them have gone because they disagreed. A whole raft of generals were basically fired because they didn't agree with the strategy of attacking Iran. So I'm not sure this will play. In fact, I think it would become a major issue in America. I don't know what you think about that one.
I think we may find out whether it become a major issue, because the chances are we're already on that route, because certainly RT were reporting yesterday that the Pentagon had approved sending a Marine expeditionary unit of 5,000 Marines and sailors. If they have, then they're not going to be sending Marines to sit on a ship. Well, not in my opinion. I might be very wrong on that. That might be me misinterpreting that. But to me, if they're sending a Marine, what they're calling a Marine expeditionary force, that's boots on the ground.
Yeah, that 5,000 Marines.
Many in some ways, but on the other hand,
sounds a lot. But I wouldn't expect to see many of them coming back.
No,
I mean they're going to have to. Those Marines are going to have the best air cover, the best of everything, because Iran is a formidable opponent. Many times the capabilities and manpower that America can bring to bear currently in any meaningful way. So 5,000 Marines, they better bring 5,000 body bags. I feel sorry for the families of those poor soldiers. And I've known many Marines, and I've even been on Marine. Every morning they get up and they do a run. And I said, would it be okay if some of us came? And we did, and we ran around with the Marines. And then I spent the next 4 hours recovering. So they are pretty tough guys.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're saying. It is not. Yeah. It's not a drop. It's a drop in the ocean against Iran's forces. Yeah. And I don't see that being a main ground attack. I don't know what that would be used for. They seem to be focused on Karg Island at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they would consider trying to take that and then try to use that as a bargaining chip. I don't know. That is just me throwing.
That's one of the islands in the Straits of Hormuz.
It's one of their main. It's their main oil departure points.
Departure right in there, yeah. So I suppose they're looking at that as a strategic takeover, and perhaps, obviously, as a staging post to then go to mainland Iran. Sorry, I'm making the same mistake as a lot of people do. I always do. Iraq, Iran, but it's but.
I've not heard that. They've been bombing Karg Islands. They hit all the American line. They hit all the military targets on, obliterated them. Iranian line, all the defenses were up and running again in an hour. They took some damage, but they were up and running an hour. So you know what I mean?
They'll keep going. They'll keep going.
But they've not been focused on a ground. But I can't see exactly what you said in a way. I can't see what they can do with 5,000. No. It sounds a lot, but I think Iran's forces are probably nearer 1 million.
Oh, goodness. Certainly over 600,000. And since the conflict began, they will have been inundated with people, willing to sign up. Now, raw recruits are not. It takes a while to take someone off the street and turn them into an efficient soldier or efficient airman or whatever. But as we were saying the other day, that pipeline is in constant progress now. There are people coming along, and the longer this war goes on, the more the Iranians will build up their strength. Even at pushing 700,000, that's still an enormous amount of bodies, and they have an enormous amount of kit, and they're fighting on home turf, and the defender always has the advantage, really. So there will be some strategy somewhere in trying to acquire this island, if it's not just to destroy. If they are intending to land on that island, there will be a strategy. It will be of strategic value in order to progress the war in some other way. So again,
it might have a completely different objective. I've not seen any evidence of that as an objective. It's just that they do have this. The US do have this telegraphing thing that they do. When you're doing a match in wrestling, when they give away what their next move is going to be, it's called telegraphing the move. It probably comes from something else as well. But the US do have this tendency to telegraph their next move. And that's the only thing that makes me wonder, because it cannot be a mainland Iran attack, not with 5,000. They wouldn't, like you say, it
just
with you.
They wouldn't. It wouldn't work. So no, as I say, I'm not sure what the strategy there would be. Whether that's, whether they're just going to bomb the place flat or try to, and then move on to it. I really don't know. That's more likely would be the plan. Okay. All right. So the next bullet point I've got, and many people again will have seen this, because it's an Israeli story, and this was earlier in the week again. that the 5 Israeli soldiers who committed the assault and basically rape of a Palestinian prisoner in the side Tienen, I think it's called Side Tienen or Sidi Tienen military prison back in 2004. Well, those 5 soldiers have walked free from a trial that they were awaiting, and that's not unexpected. It's not unexpected because we saw the response at the time, didn't we? We saw the response of the Israeli public who came out onto the streets and actually tried to break into the camp in order to rescue these soldiers. So again, not unexpected. It's the Israeli playbook. They're never guilty of anything. And even if they are guilty of it, they can forgive themselves of anything. You know, they don't have the capacity for justice, I think. So I'd say, I know you were particularly, I think you even did a program on it or part of a program on it at the time when the demonstrations were taking place. So I know it's something that you know, pushed your button, as it were. Yeah. So I don't know what you think about this.
It's hard to not push your buttons when a country protests not against the rape of prisoners, but against you asking the people that raped them questions about it. You daring to interrogate them. And it's kind of, and it shouldn't be, it really shouldn't be. But by now it's kind of, yeah, we didn't expect anything else with me, you know what I mean? But it really shouldn't be, because it should be still horrifying me like it did when they rioted because they dared question the rapists.
Yeah.
And then they set, but then of course after that they also sacked the
well, yeah, what was her name?
I can't remember exactly who she was, but she was
she the journalist who broke the story, or was she
basically,
or the minister, or one of them? I can't remember. I know that she was basically sacked for revealing it, wasn't she? Yeah.
She allowed it to be. She was the person in charge, and she allowed it to be revealed. Basically, yeah. She didn't censor it. She didn't stop it coming out. Yeah. She kind of signed off on it being released.
And for me, it's just an example of the Zionist attitude. It's just an example of the fact that how could we possibly do anything wrong? How could we possibly? We are the most moral people on you know, we are God's chosen people. Everything we do is ordained. Everything we do is, there's no such thing as human rights, because nobody but us are actually human. Therefore, we can do what we like. And this is not just sort of rhetoric. This is dogma. This is in the Torah. This is what these people believe. They believe that everybody else in the world, everybody who's a non-Jew, and in fact some people who are Jews, aren't really humans. They're kind of some kind of second-class creature, which are only put there for their convenience. And the entire way that they go about things reflects that attitude. And this is a prime example.
It does.
Okay. All right, then we moving on a bit. I'm going through the week and things that I saw. You may have seen other things, but I'm just bringing up the ones I saw. Now there was a base in Kurdistan that was struck by drones, and it turns out that this is a joint special forces base that we share with America. And some of the personnel who were there were part of the British SAS. Now, what they're doing in Kurdistan, what the Americans are doing in Kurdistan, heaven only knows. That's way above almost everybody's pay grade. But it just shows you that the Iranian intelligence is quite good. They know where all the bases are. They know, they know what they're looking to hit, and they managed to hit this base. But as with the supposed drone that hit Cyprus, that hit RAF Akrotiri, we're now trying to drag in Russia. We're now trying to drag in the fact that there may be Russian involvement, because the UK's Defence Secretary, John Healey, that kind of pale, gaunt man who sort of lurks around the military, he said that Vladimir Putin is behind some of Iran's tactics. And he said there were definitely signs that Russia is helping Iran. And Healey said, we're examining the drone that hit a hangar in RAF Akrotiri for signs of Russian components. Now, this is a little bit bizarre. It's a little bit bizarre because the type of drone that hit the hangar in Akrotiri and the type of drones that hit that special forces base are basically Iranian drones, and the type of drones that Russia have been using in their special military operation are Iranian drones. Now, some of them have been the Russians have started building their own model of that drone. But I see no reason why a drone that came. I'm not sure. Let's say I have my suspicions that drone didn't come from Iran anyway. It probably came from either Israel or Cyprus, and so the suspicion is that the Israelis could have done anything to that drone. It could have been tampered with. It could have had new parts. It could, this all seems now. It seems to me to be a narrative. It's narrative building. Oh yeah, Russia are involved. Russia are helping Iran. Russia are part of the problem, and therefore we just push the two together. It's Russia, Iran that are now our enemy, and this is what this seems to me to be an attempt to conflate the two, to enmesh them as a single entity that we're fighting. The US should bring all their military home and keep Israel to it. It's their war. This is what Richard is saying. Let them take the consequences of their actions. Yeah. Well, Israel are completely incapable of attacking Iran on their own. They are logistically incapable. And in terms of force strength, they're incapable. So without the US, they couldn't pursue this war any further. That's just the facts on the ground. I don't know. What do you think about this whole Russia thing, Alex?
They spent the entire part of the Ukraine war saying that Russia was using Iranian drones. So it's kind of contradicting itself ridiculously, to be honest. It's kind of, but that whole story, it was one of the cases where you were supposed to read the headline, because all the headlines, and they varied obviously, but all the headlines were that it hit, they'd attacked a British base. They'd attacked a British base here. And it was all playing on the British base. But when you look into it, even in its own story, it's an international base. The only casualties, the only wounded things were the US soldiers, and which suggests they were in different parts of it, and which suggests they only targeted the US part of the base, because not a single British soldier was injured. Yeah. But we were supposed to believe it was a British base, and now they've tried to link it into Russia. Now they've tried to do the whole do the whole Russian drones thing when it was Iranian drones supposedly in Russia.
It was just too much to resist, Ian, wasn't it?
Well, it's not to wind you guys up, because I know the weather there's horrible at the moment. I think it's about 26 here, and the beer's cold.
Yeah.
Oh, good. No, we've just been paragliding, and now Kath's taking her mum off for an afternoon late lunch and some shopping for Mother's Day. So all I've got to do is chill by the pool. What can I say?
Well, while you're here, then we could get your opinions. I don't know if you've been following that bit. We were talking about the Russian, the possible, that John Healy's saying that Vladimir Putin, is behind Iran's tactics. That all of this. I think it's just an effort to draw. It was an effort or an ongoing effort to draw us in further.
Well, I think I can probably encapsulate the situation at the moment the way I see it in a single sentence. Donald Trump is begging the world to keep the Strait of Hormuz open in a war that he won a week ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they have no idea how to do that. They have no idea how to keep the Straits of Hormuz open. And he's accused of. I know he's accused some of these tanker captains of being cowards.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Okay. Just because you don't want to get blown to smithereens, then you're a coward.
Well, the US Navy are cowards, because some of the tanker captains asked to be escorted and they went, no freaking way.
No, we're not going to do it. Yeah. And then they start saying, well, we'll offer you our own insurance. I would read the fine print on that.
The best news that I've heard all week is that Netanyahu is dead.
Yeah, we were discussing that. Yeah, as to the, just how much faith do we put in that? I think there's a lot in it. I think it's been crickets for a while. There's been very little coming. He's not been involved in the same way that Trump's been pushing himself forward all the time.
I think the evidence speaks for itself. They released an AI-generated video, Netanyahu with 6 fingers. So it was obviously AI. Even I could see that was AI.
Yeah.
Then I have seen leaked footage of the destruction of his complex, which received not one but 2 hypersonics. Then, if you watch the Israeli Security Council, they all look very, very shaken. So, him and Ben Kavir, both dead as doornails. Tra-la, the witch is dead, the wicked witch, the witch is dead, and I couldn't be happier.
No,
and the problem we've got is he was meant to be Israel's last prime minister to bring in the apocalypse and the return of their Messiah. What are they going to do now?
All they got left is Smotrich, the other kind of foaming at the mouth, fucking Zionist. That seems they've got Smotrich left, and he's not of the same lunacy character as Gavir and Netanyahu. I mean, his brand of lunacy is lunacy. I mean, he's no less bloodthirsty, but he's never been quite as openly vociferous about it. And I like you said, I'm secretly celebrating this, Ian, but there's just this dread that it might not be true, and that they're going to wheel out Netanyahu. I don't know if he's got a body double or ever had, or whether they're going to wheel him out at some stage and say, "Ha, look, all you fuckwits, he's still alive." I don't know. I'm hoping for the best,
Well, what I know is Ariel Sharon who was Israeli Prime Minister back around 2000, he had a massive stroke, dead.
Yeah.
They kept the cunt alive on life support for 8 fucking years. So unless he's been blown to so many bits that they can't find him, it wouldn't surprise me if they try and keep him on life support, or even if he's clinically dead. But no, it's what worries me. Go on, Glenn.
Go on.
No, go on.
No, I'm going to say that's if you look on the other side of the coin, if you look on the side of the new Ayatollah, America was saying, "Oh yeah, that guy, he's dead," and then he's dead. He's not dead. He's in a coma. We've blown his leg off, and then he comes out with a whole statement. I mean that of how he wants this war to go and everything like that. So we're seeing this on both sides. It's all about head chopping. It's all about decapitation, and that's completely just propaganda through and through. I mean, that's the whole reason for doing this. It's as much propaganda value as anything else.
Israel and America changed the rules of the game. When Trump took out Maduro, when they authorized the bombing of Khomeini's house, they changed the game.
Yeah.
And Russia and China and everyone else is looking on, knowing that the game has now changed. And our other favorite little fucking cocaine snorting Nazi lunatic, Zelensky, now has to be really worried because the gloves are off. And even if Putin isn't willing to throw a hypersonic or two at Baklava Street, the Iranians, because he's saying, yes, Ukraine will be in this war, well, the Ukrainians are going, great, because we've got missiles that can reach it. It's that reach out and touch me, your own personal fucking Jesus. So, I mean, he needs to be worried. Romania needs to be worried because the Iranian missiles can hit Romania.
Yeah.
And Trump, from everything I'm hearing, he is demented. He's running about asking people if Americans are distracted enough for him to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
He keeps claiming victory in a war that he lost the day he bombed Khomeini.
Yeah.
But the frightening thing is, I was reading in Haaretz this morning that senior officials in Washington now are very concerned. They think Israel's getting very close to using a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
And because the bottom line is, the Iranians have destroyed all the super fancy THAADs and Patriots. There is no air defense now, not for Israel, not for the US bases, not for the Gulf states who are helping. I've seen pictures of Iranian drones flying at will over US bases with so many targets, it doesn't know what to hit, quite frankly. So they have kicked the hornet's nest, and now they're leaving the whirlwind. But it is worrying that these people are crazy enough, because they are losing. As I predicted, the Houthis went, well, we'll close Bab al-Mandab, and now your US carrier is a sitting duck. And coinky dinky, mysterious fires suddenly happened on board. Because, the world's most complex aircraft carrier, that's what happens on them. Mysterious fires happen. So no, they've lost this war, and Ukraine now it's done because there's no weapons, there's no air defense. America can't afford to send Ukraine nanti, and Europe has nothing to send.
Yeah.
The only sane person in Europe, apart from Orban and Fico, is the guy here in Spain. But
Yeah, that's it. Well,
at
Trump
the
hates
same
them now,
time,
doesn't he?
yeah, at the same time, we still have Ursula von der Crazy, Kaja, I've not got two brain cells, and Kier, where's the five rent boys, refusing to even think about getting cheap Russian oil and gas. That's lunacy on a grandiose
Suicide.
scale.
Yeah, it is. It's suicide. Let's let Alex jump in because she sat there very quiet for a minute. Go on, Alex. You have a go.
It is that level of insanity, and it's the whole oil thing for a start. They've said, oh, no, America suddenly, oh yes, you can now buy Russian oil, and Russian oil's gone through the roof. They're making 60% increases on about what they're selling it at, and it's topping out above Brent. So and I'll get to some of that on the economic bit, but it's everything they say did with the sanctions on Russia, if any of them had worked anyway, has just been undone in 1 week by Trump panicking because of the Straits of Hormuz. They've set the whole battle back. It's not back. We know it's already won. We know Ukraine are. We know they've just been taken bit by bit at the speed they want to because they don't want to risk that many of their men, but they've set from their point of view and the way they present it, they've set the whole Ukraine thing back several months because they've just funded Russia's war effort because of the war with Iran.
Yeah,
exactly. No, you're spot on, and I know that things are in good hands with both of you. So I'm going to bug out because I've very almost finished my cerveza. Un grande cerveza, por favor, señor. So I need to go. It's so hot here. I can feel me burning up.
pissing down me. I could hardly hear you there for a few minutes because the rain was lashing that hard on the roof. So enjoy your holiday. I'm not jealous.
Well, before I go, is there anything you want me to bring you back? Do you want a sombrero or castanets?
The weather.
My suitcase is already divested of its clothes because I bought so much rum. But yo, I am a pirate.
Yes. Well, save some for next time I come up.
I will do, Glenn. All right, guys, I'll leave you to it. Everyone in the audience, have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks
for now.
Thanks for coming on here. It's been a pleasure, mate.
No bother. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
That's lighten the mood.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it was raised, we might as well go into looking at the economic side of this, because Ian was just talking about the Straits of Hormuz, and this is one of the big sticking things. This is the thing that they don't seem to have a real strategy for, or it doesn't appear that they have. So let's.
Well, they don't. But yes, it's well, I looked. If you've not been on the last couple of weeks, I've been looking at the economic effect of the whole economic effect of Operation Epstein Fury. Oh, sorry, I mean Epic Fury. Did you know, just to do an aside at the moment, do you know that the US has classified the term Epstein class as being Iranian propaganda? I'm not kidding you. They've decided using the term Epstein class is Iranian propaganda. Well, I'm sorry, but I've been using the term Epstein class, and so we all have for a good while now, certainly before this war started. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty damn sure it's not Iranian propaganda. But yeah, that's if you're saying Epstein class, you're now spreading Iranian propaganda. But what's happening with the oil prices? Because I've been going through these last couple of weeks and I find it worth giving the update each week at the moment because it does keep changing and it keeps going up. So where are we going this week? Well, this is Brent this week and it's topped out at $103.8 per barrel. Now, I predicted last week 104. So that's pretty damn close. Now, I didn't predict it as a financial analyst. I'm not saying I can say exactly what it is or that I know what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is using the very most basic thing of a graph, cutting through the middles of the peaks and troughs and extending that graph onwards, it brought us to 104 or just short of 104 if you actually look on the screen, and where we are is just short of $104. It's been spot on. Now that means that if it carries on in the same way, we are definitely looking at being around 118 by the end of next week. And if it does keep going in that direction, because remember, Trump doesn't know when this is going to end. It might be 3 weeks, it might be 8 weeks, it might be 6 weeks, it might be 2 weeks, or it might be forever. We could fight a forever war. If it carries on for 1 month, that's putting crude at $134 per barrel. For 2 months, $194 per barrel. This is the 10 years. The last 10 years, and where we are now, there's only one point in the last 10 years that we were higher than that. If we do get to 134, even the first one of those, if we do get to the 134 per barrel, even if we get to the 120 a barrel, just above what I'm looking at next week, if it carries on, we will be up to the highest point it's been at 10 years. If we get to 134, we'll be higher than it's been in 10 years. That other peak, incidentally, was May in 2020, and that was driven by the combination of the Russia-Ukraine war and where everybody was getting back from after the COVID crap. So it was industries reopening, it was businesses reopening on top of the disruption caused by Russia-Ukraine was enough to send that peak up to just under the 120. But that's the only other time in 10 years we've been there. And if you look even at the climb to that, it is not the straight line that we are looking at now.
Yeah.
We are looking, I mean, we're even looking beyond an exponential curve because it's not even doing the curve up to it. It's just gone and shot straight up. So I wanted to look at the differences from that for the different countries because, like I said a few minutes ago about Ural, well, this is the UK. So you've got the UK's, this is Brent, which is the one I've used. So you've already seen this graph in a way, but this is Brent crude. And this is for the year, and it's shot up. And it's had a little drop again, and then it's shot up again. So Brent, which is the British one, is at its highest point is nearly $104. Because like I said, this is the main one I use to watch. Because Brent is pretty much the universal standard when you're looking at crude prices.
Yeah.
This is all stuff I'm learning now. I didn't know this. I couldn't have told you this 3 weeks ago. But you start looking into these things, you start finding out these things. But this is a percentage rise, and you're seeing almost the same, because obviously you will be. But its percentage is around 45% increase. So there's been about 45% increase from the start of a year ago. From a year ago, 45% increase on Brent. So look at UTI, which is the main American company. You've had a bigger drop and you've had not quite so high as Brent, but it's sitting on $98 per barrel. But for America, that is a 46 to 47% increase. And now we get to the Urals, which is the Russian company. And it's gone up to just over the 100, but it has dropped back down on that one and then up again to now be sitting at the $90 mark. Now, why is Russians dropping when the US and Britain is both still going up? Problem is, I don't think that's a negative scenario. I think what you're seeing is basic economics, basic supply and demand. Russia can still get its oil out. Russia still has oil, but still can get it through. They're limited shipping going through the Straits of Hormuz, but they have agreements to let Russia and China through. So I think that's what we're seeing in response. But the other response we are seeing is its price dropping by how much they've sold. Because the one thing we have seen is Trump saying, well, I'm dropping all the tariffs, I'm dropping all the sanctions on that. You can now buy Russian crude, because he knows he's not going to get the support from Europe if he doesn't allow them to do something. So it's dropped because of what they sold. It's supply, it's basic supply and demand. But when we look at the percentages on Russia, and this is why I said we've effectively funded the Russian war machine with this war, and I don't find that a major problem, but the Americans probably will, and the Europeans certainly will. But Russia, at the highest point, was looking at a 60% increase from its price a year ago. Because obviously, if you can't buy it, if people are prevented from buying it, it's going to drive the price down. But now it's driven that price up by 60% at its highest point. Like I say, it's dropped for a bit, but it's still rising again at the moment. Now, what I wanted to look at today, though, is moving on from the oil prices, is the whole insurance market. Because this has been the real reason the Straits of Hormuz are closed. Yes, shipping has got to make a decision if it wants to risk attack, and Iran has said it will stop any shipping connected to the US or Israel from traveling through the Straits. But the question is, even if they wanted to risk it, they can't. And this is why it's completely disingenuous for Trump to say they're cowards. They're cowards. They're cowards. They're not allowed to sail without insurance. But it's not as simple as Lloyd's have cancelled everything. It never has. But I wanted to have a look at Lloyd's of London quickly before I got into that, because we're talking a company that's so much a part of the history of the UK, so much a part of the history of the city of London, that it has its own fucking coat of arms. So who are Lloyd's of London? Well, weirdly, it started out as a coffee shop. Now, that sounds ridiculous when you're looking at it through the eyes of today, but it started out in the 17th century, and in 1653 was the first point at which coffee was imported into the UK. You've got to look at it through the eyes of the 17th century, at which point coffee was a luxury good. It was completely connected to shipping and commerce. It was completely connected to that whole import-export trade. And from that start, you have Lloyd's of London, which you have today. Now, it started off, as I say, it started off as a coffee shop, but it was never just that, because it became the point of information for the ship's captains. In fact, each of your coffee shops you had in London and probably everywhere else, they all kind of had not so much a specialist, but it became that because they attracted a different clientele. And Lloyd's attracted the shipping clientele, it attracted the captains, it attracted the ship owners, because they would use it to do their business. And it would rent out boxes, as it called it, but basically almost like you'd rent out a booth at the coffee shop, you'd sit there drinking your coffee, and you'd be meeting with other people connected. And it grew from this to be providing all the information it could do on the shipping and maritime businesses effectively. And it carried on in that vein to the point that it was providing something called the Lloyd's List. And it eventually goes on to become almost a whole newspaper. And you see echoes of this when we used to listen to the whole shipping reports. You see echoes of this still, because as they went through time, they were literally taking information from the ships at sea. They were receiving a semaphore signal and sending it down the coast while before the ship had docked, because obviously you're talking before you had radios, you're talking before you had contact with the ships, except they did, because they would take a message in semaphore, they would spread it down. And it grew to have a global network of agents appointed in different localities in different parts across the globe to bring in local intelligence. And at that stage, it started out as the monopoly, because it was what it did. And it was the only person at one point able to do this. Now, that monopoly has changed over the years, but it's also been supported and backed over the years. This is why you get the accusations of a shadow fleet, because they simply haven't gone through Lloyd's of London. You see, I could go through the whole history, but we would be here a long time, because it has become front and center of the whole industry for shipping and maritime, and front and center within the City of London. It became established within, it became almost incorporated within the city. And what it does now, it is not just an insurer to the maritime trade, it's a reinsurer. Now, what's a reinsurer? You might say, I had to look that one up myself. Just like when we talked about the World Bank is the bank for banks. A reinsurer is the insurance company for insurance companies. That's the simplest way to put it. So you may have your shipping insurance through somebody else, but Lloyd's of London will most likely be the reinsurer. So what have they done? Because what they haven't done is cancelled all insurance policies and refused to insure shipping. What they have done is cancelled all insurance policies and reinstated them at a higher price on different terms. Now, the reason that makes a massive difference is they've gone from the insurance paid being 0.25% of the value of the ship and cargo to being about 1.5% of the value of the ship and cargo. Now, that sounds not a big quantity, not a big amount, but when you consider that a container ship at the small end will be something like 17 million, when you go from 0.25 to 1.5, that's 1.25% of 17 million, which is not, excuse me just 2 seconds because the maths didn't work. Let's do it the old way. Divided by 100 times 1.25. Oh. Excuse me for 2 seconds while I make the calculator work. So the difference for the bottom end of the scale is 212,500 extra they are paying. The 100 million will be paying an extra 12,500,000. When you're suddenly paying that much extra, that is why you're effectively stopping the shipping. But that alone wouldn't be enough to ground the carriers. The problem is they are offering that insurance on hull and cargo. That basically means that insurance will only now cover your ship and what you're taking. If your ship sinks, you'll get the value of your ship and the value of your cargo. What you won't get is anything for the risks to your crew, anything for any claims you will be facing for the death of your crew. What you won't get is any, more importantly and more valuable, is any payout for the fact that you haven't been able to transport through the straits. You won't get paid for any delays. You won't get paid for any delays in shipping, for how longer, for not being able to do it, for being stuck up, for not being able to get into a port. The new policies are only literally offering hull and cargo. This is my understanding of it anyway, and if I am wrong, then somebody please correct me. So that brings us to America, because yes, we're going to we're going to escort the ships through the straits, except we're not going to. When it comes to it, the Navy are turning around and saying, no, we're not going to at all. And then they're calling, like we said, they're calling the captains cowards for not wanting to risk their ship and not being able to, because if they're not insured, this is the other thing, you can't just, it's like a car. You cannot drive without insurance. If anything happens and you're driving without insurance, you're personally, at some level, liable. It's a criminal offence. But at very, very least, you would be paying for any damage. Okay, if you write off somebody's brand new Lexus, that's going to be almost unpayable for. But what if you're uninsured and your $100 million container and $3 million cargo, maybe even more than that on a bigger one, ends up at the bottom of the straits? What if you've then got cases being taken against you by the families of your crew that you told they had to go through? So you have America saying, well, we'll insure these places, we'll insure them instead. We'll offer our own insurance. Thing is, the American insurance is exactly the same. They're still looking at insuring hull only, on hull or hull and cargo. Some of them are not even covering the cargo. I guess the thought is that if the cargo is seized, they don't want to pay out. They will only pay out if it's sunk. So again, you've not got those extra covers. Again, you've not got that safety. But the real question is why? Because it's not London has cancelled all these insurances. So we're going to give people the option to still travel by creating our own. It's almost being done as if the US state is being the reinsurer, and it would be working with insurance companies in the States to offer this insurance. But that, to me, is something a lot more, something a lot deeper in that. And I've even had somebody try to tell me last night that this is the crux of it. And the crux of this is the reason for the whole war, because it's Trump fighting the deep state. I don't believe this is Trump fighting the deep state. I do believe this is the Trump faction, and I still call it the Trump faction, though I'm not convinced that Trump is the person running it anymore. I'm not sure he's coherent enough or compos mentis enough to be running it anymore. But this, to me, is another bid by the Trump faction, which in many cases I think is potentially nowadays the tech faction, is potentially connected to the Palantirs and to the tech bros, if you like, of this world. But I feel like this is another bid for them against the old order of the New World Order, the old faction, the bloodlines, if you like, because it's hitting straight at Lloyd's of London, offering no more, offering no different, but suddenly making a bid for that business that's been sewn up for not just decades, but centuries in the City of London. And now suddenly America and whoever's got the money in America to be backing this, because the country certainly hasn't, is making a bid for that money. It's making a strike against the city, as I see it. I don't know your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I was having some thoughts on the previous one while you were doing that, and it reminded me on the oil price. And people were saying this came upon Question Time. Now, I despise Question Time, but I watch it just to see what the BBC are pumping out.
Yeah.
And a question was raised there with, if we have oil in the North Sea, how come our prices are skyrocketing? The problem is, technically, we do have oil in the North Sea, but we don't pump it. What Britain does is we sell drilling licenses and extraction licenses, and we basically collect rent on it. So we in Britain, even though we've got these vast oil fields, have to pay what's described as spot price, the world price that is going at the time. And like you said, Alex, it's one of the indicators is Brent crude, one of the big benchmarks. Whatever Brent crude is tends to those prices level out across the world. So if oil from the Gulf states starts to get expensive, all the others come up to reach that, because it's demand, exactly as you were saying. It's demand that's driving the price, because if demand falls from one state, then it rises on another. So that's a kind of a view of that. In terms of Lloyd's of London, Lloyd's have had a virtual monopoly mostly on world shipping insurance. And quite often when you look at ships, you'll see a South Moluccan flagged ship, or a I don't know, all these weird countries, an Eritrean flagged ship. And these are called flags of convenience. Why shipping companies operate under those flags are because it allows them to get around things like employment and condition laws for their crews. And you'll find that these ships are mostly crewed by people like Filipinos and Bangladeshis, cheap labor basically, who are cut out of all that. But yeah, I kind of concur with that idea that there is an ongoing effort to try and shift the financial power of the City of London into the American direction, as well as wanting to establish, because these things come from empirical days. Britain became the world financial center because Britain's currency was the reserve currency. Britain was the greatest industrial and military power on the globe at that time, and so that's why everybody looked to London. But if you wanted to build a new, let's say, Western Hemisphere-based empire, technocratic empire, call it what you like, then there would be a desire to shift the financial services industry, including shipping insurance, over to within that empire. So I concur that that's part of the bigger picture. Yeah. In terms of prices, I can't see that the longer this war goes on, they're just going to keep climbing. I drive by the garage every day, and every day it's gone up a couple of p, and that's inexorable. Let the dog in there, because she's don't let the dog in. Oh, sorry. Oh dear.
It would kind of be interesting to do that, to keep a record of the price at the pump
At your local area. Now, there's a disparate thing across the UK that there is quite a difference, strangely enough. And the country, Cool. The areas that used to be closer to our one and only refinery, you would expect that to be, you'd probably benefit from lower prices.
Yeah.
That was never the case. Scotland's always had some of the highest petrol prices, fuel prices in the whole country, and still does, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
Now, the companies say, well, it's because we have to transport the oil so far. No, it's coming from a pipeline from Norway, So it's not that far away. No, it's bullshit.
Well, we don't have a refinery anymore to
No,
things,
no
so I don't
refinery
imagine
anymore.
that helps.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd like to kind of set up a test here, actually. So if
Sorry, that's my dog.
Anybody who's listening, I think we'd be interesting to see by next Sunday what's happening at the pumps. So if I can have if anybody wants to volunteer, ideally in different countries, well, I want 3 or 4 people, but if I could get 3 or 4 people in different countries, contact me if you're up for it. If you drive past a petrol station, Richard, you'd be quite a good one for this in Scotland because you drive for a living. But if you drive past a petrol station every day,
come here.
And you happen to drive past the same petrol station every day, because it would need to be the same one, and you could make a note of the price for me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday over the next week, and send me the information by Saturday. If I could get somebody in Scotland, somebody in England, somebody in Wales, New Zealand, Australia, if I could get somebody in each of those countries, it would be very interesting to see what the results are. I would like to put that against the rise in crude and see if it mirrors it. I'd be very interested to see.
I'll do it on there. I'll keep my eye every time I go by.
Cool.
And,
I can do, or just take a picture. Yeah, you're right, Naz. Just take a picture on your phone if it comes to it. But it would be good if somebody could send that information to me by next Saturday. I'd put that against the Brent prices and see the effect that it's literally having, because that could be quite scary. But it could be very informative.
Well, the rate of increase, yeah. Okay. So I think we're about ready to transition, don't you?
Yeah, I think we probably need to. It's 3:30 already, but we're only giving ourselves no time, so it's no bad thing.
No.
But we will transition now into the Lone Gunman side, so stay with us, and we will be back shortly.
See him wasted in the saddle. He comes riding through your town. He's wearing yesterday's misfortunes like a smile. Once he had a future full of money, love, and dreams, but he spent like it was going out of style. But he just keeps on believing that for better or for worse, he's searching for a shrine he's never found. Never knowing if believing is a lesson or a curse, or if going up is worth coming down. He's a poet and a picker. He's a prophet and a pusher. He's a pilgrim and a preacher, and a problem when he's stoned. He's this walking contradiction, partly truth and partly fiction. He's taken every wrong direction on a lonely road back home. He has tasted good and evil in the bedrooms and the bars. He's traded in tomorrows for today. He's running from his demons and he's reaching for the stars, leaving everything he's loved along the way. And the world just keeps on turning, so for better or for worse, All he ever gets is older and around. From the rocking of his cradle to the rolling of the hearse, going up's not worth coming down. But he's a poet and a picker, he's a prophet and a preacher, he's a pilgrim and a preacher, and a problem when he's stoned. He's this walking contradiction, partly truth, he's partly fiction. He's taking every wrong direction on a lonely road back home.
Hello, and we are back.
We're not going to say welcome, pilgrims.
No.
That's hardly say anything. I've got a mouthful of minstrels. Yeah. So, welcome back to the Lone Gunman part of the show, in which we are, as usual, we're going to explore a couple of topics. So, I don't know who you want to go first, Alex.
I think as you never had any, as you were missing your slides in the first half, I think perhaps you can start us off with yours.
Okay. Just give me a second to finish.
We'll give you a chance to finish your minstrels first for a second or two.
I didn't. I just put too many in my mouth at once. All right. So for this week's show, in a kind of related way, because at the moment everything is related to war. Everything is related to this war, the Ukrainian war, ongoing forever wars. And so I've been looking at unconventional weapons. Now most weapons can be described basically, most weapons that we have today, most so-called modern weapons, can be described as kinetic energy weapons. Now this means that they transfer energy from the weapon to the human body, or to buildings or to whatever, in order to damage or destroy them. And this is the principle. It's been the principle of weapons ever since, the arrow or the club or the stone. It's a process of energy transfer. Now, hopefully this slide will work, because when I put it up, it was dark. So I'm not sure. It was a light background when I did it. And when I said, it did work. Okay. So this is a basic explanation of kinetic energy. When a ball is stationary, it has no kinetic energy. When that golf ball energy is transferred to it by a golf club, it gains kinetic energy and therefore flies through the air. And it's the same with the bullet inside the gun. While it's just sitting there, it has no kinetic energy. Once the explosive charge inside the shell casing has gone off, it then transfers that kinetic energy to the bullet. And that's a kind of simple, explanation. The bullet leaving the rifle has kinetic energy from its propellant charge, which it then transfers to its target on impact, causing damage or death. Okay. Now, when a chemical reaction takes place in order to generate this kinetic energy, this energy is transferred into its surroundings, along with the heat of the reaction. Slide 2, please, Alex. The larger the reaction, or what we call the explosion or detonation, the greater the potential damage that this energy can be, that it can cause. Now, what we've also learned to do is direct this energy in the form of what are called shaped or directed charges. And these are used for penetration, and things like armor piercing, bullets, armor piercing, shells. They use a method for directing the charge and vaporizing things such as copper, which will then enter the hole and basically incinerate everybody inside, say, a tank. All right. But all of these types of weapons, all these kinds of modern weapons, are described as conventional weapons. Even a nuclear weapon actually can be thought of as a kind of conventional weapon. Its main destructive capabilities come from the violent reaction that when two pieces of say plutonium or uranium are brought close together and reach what's called critical mass, and they then react on a nuclear level and generate an enormous explosion. And they also generate enormous amounts of thermal heat. Slide 3, please, Alex. Now, in a nuclear explosion, energy is also transformed into what's called ionizing radiation, such as alpha and beta particles and gamma radiation and neutron rays, and all of these can cause enormous damage to the cells in the human body. So that's nuclear weapons, which are in a way conventional in the sense that they are using energy. They're using the kinetic energy of the explosion. Okay. Now, even most of what we call unconventional weapons use some form of energy transfer to cause damage and death. But but these might include unusual methods of delivering that energy. Now, the two constants with kinetic energy weapons, be that those that use chemical or those that use nuclear reactions, are the faster the speed of the reaction, the greater the energy produced. And this is the difference between gunpowder, which is a low explosive, and C4, for instance, which is a high explosive. The difference between those two is the speed at which the reaction takes place. The greater the energy produced, the more damage that resulting explosion causes. Okay, slide 4, please, Alex. So, this is the kind of explanation of that high or detonating explosive process in extremely rapid, almost instantaneous, very, very, very quick reaction, which is why it's called a high explosive. And a low explosive is more of a burning process, low velocity of burning and produce pressure by progressive burning. So that's the difference between high and low explosives. Okay. Now, two types of weapons that fall outside of this classification of conventional are, of course, chemical and biological. Chemical weapons can only, they can be any compound that can cause injury and death or incapacitation. They can cause incapacitation, they can cause disorientation, or even irritation. For example, tear gas and pepper spray are both technically chemical weapons, except they fall outside of the convention for chemical weapons, but they are still essentially chemical weapons. Whoops, that's the bell again. Now, toxic, which means poisonous, basically. Toxic chemicals are at the top tier in what could be described as a pyramid of lethality and sort of effectiveness. And currently, there are several types of nerve agents that are classified as the most toxic, the most deadly. And right at the top of that list currently is Novichok. And then we move down slightly to VX, another highly toxic substance, along with cyclosarin. These are all perhaps the three most toxic in this class. And these agents can be delivered, as we sort of know, as a liquid or a gas. And VX is a kind of oily liquid that was developed by the British in the 1950s. And its oiliness helps it to stick to, makes it difficult to get off. So it makes it even more dangerous. Let's look at slide 5, please, Alex. And here we see a soldier using the protective clothing, what we call the NBC suit, the nuclear biological chemical suit. And that includes boots and the respirators with special filters. And he's also using a detection device there, what we used to call a NIAID, which is a chemical agent detection. And the idea of the device is it will tell you what kind of chemical agent is present. Okay. Now, during the Cold War, many countries built up large stocks of chemical weapons. And eventually these were banned under the 1993 Chemical Weapons Conventions. But stockpiles actually still exist worldwide. We've still got an awful lot of chemical weapons that are stockpiled. And the justification behind that is this is a precaution against possible use by an aggressor. So in effect, what we're saying is the 1993 convention only really limited stockpiles. It didn't eliminate them. So chemical weapons are still out there, and they're still one of the easiest unconventional weapons to use if you have absolutely no morals. Okay. Now then, there's the next part of that class really are biological weapons. And biological weapons come in many forms, but they all use the principle of infectious, the infectious nature, the germs, viruses, and bacteria. They all use that mechanism to kill or harm or incapacitate. And again, there's a hierarchy. Among the most dangerous are anthrax and botulinum toxin. And both of these are very easy to produce, and they're highly lethal. A single gram of botulinum toxin can kill more than 1 million people. So they are highly infectious, highly deadly. But you don't have to use the worst. Many diseases can be used as biological weapons, such as smallpox or Ebola and tularemia, which is maybe one you've not heard of. But these have all been weaponized as well. And delivery systems, once again, can be liquid or gas. Let's look at slide 6, please, Alex. Liquid or gas, or person to person, but resistant organisms such as rats and insects, can also be used to spread the infection. Okay. Now, the example on this slide is for a bacterial agent called Coxiella burnetii, or Q fever, which is that's the more sort of common name for it. Now, this is a naturally occurring infection in sheep and cattle and goats, but one that can be and has been weaponized. Now, biological weapons, are not limited to just the battlefield. They can be used to infect entire populations. COVID jab. They can be also used for that. And the use of these weapons was supposedly banned in 1972. Once again, another treaty under the Biological Weapons Convention. But just as with chemical weapons, slide 7, please, Alex. So-called defensive biological weapons and the research into them continues today. So neither the Chemical Weapons Convention nor the Biological Weapons Convention has effectively eliminated these non-conventional weapons. All right, so that's a kind of starting point, as it were. Now we're going to look at, we're going to move on to what might be classed as the newer or more exotic weapons that are now coming into the battlefield and into the knowledge of people. And the first of those is laser weapons. Now, in 2020, the US admitted that it successfully used a laser weapon to destroy an aircraft in flight. And here's a kind of illustration of that at slide 8. Yeah, that's the idea. And by 2021, the US Army announced it was deploying laser weapons. And the US Navy has had laser weaponry for quite a while now, deployed on some ships to combat not only aircraft, but missile attacks as well. And we can see one of those systems at slide 9. There we go. That's a laser mounted on a US warship. Now, of course, we've seen laser technology developed and given to Israel with its Iron Beam defensive system, which I talked about the other day. And we can actually see that Iron Beam system being used here at slide 10. There we go. Now, the Iron Beam system is the last line of defense in Israel's missile shield. It intercepts at quite, almost terminal stage. All right. Now, plans and prototypes are now being put in place to utilize offensive laser weapons. All of the weapon systems, the ones we've looked at so far, are defensive. But there are plans to transfer this into offensive weapons capability, such as this system that's been being developed by Lockheed Martin at slide 11. So this is an actual offensive laser weapon mounted to an armored vehicle. Now, anyone who's served in the military, for the past 20, 30 years have become familiar with laser guidance. Laser guidance for bombs and rockets has been around since the late 1980s. And we saw the first use of those weapons in anger, really, with the paveway slide 12. So this is the Paveway British £1,000 laser guided bomb, okay, which was used in the First Gulf War. And this system uses a guidance laser fitted to an aircraft to pinpoint, or what we used to say was paint, the target. And then the detector on the front would pick up the scattered laser signals from that target, and it be used to guide the bomb. And you can see the cable running down that bomb. That cable tells the tail, because the tail has variable sections in it that can move and rotate, and therefore steer the bomb. Okay, that's how it works. And there are a lot of variants on this system, on this theme, including the American JDAM system, which kind of puts wings on the bomb rather than just using the tail. And there are laser guided rocket systems. And then you've got the GBU 28, which is the GBU 28 bunker buster, which is also a laser guided bomb, except it's about 5,000 pounds in weight. And here we can see the GBU 28. There it is, being dropped. Okay, you can see that similar laser guidance technology being used. So as we can see, laser technology is already integrated into modern weaponry. And this technology is also being developed for the battlefield and also for crowd control. Let's look at slide 14, Alex, please. This is a non-lethal weapon designed by the US Air Force Research Laboratory, but one that's being described as having a dual purpose, that of dazzle and guide. So it's got what they call a dazzle and guide capacity, in that it can be used to temporarily blind an aggressor, but also it can be used to guide ground-to-air munitions in the same way as the current man-powered laser guidance systems are used. And we can see one of the current ones at slide 15. So that's the kind of system that can be used to direct a laser guided bomb from the ground. So you don't have to have the aircraft fitted. It can just drop the bomb over the area and be guided from the ground. Okay. So lasers are just one of the systems that could be described as directed energy weapons. Other weapons in this category include microwave weapons, particle beams, radio frequency, and sound waves. These are all classified as directed energy weapons, or DEWs. Slide 16, please, Alex. Oh, there we go. There's different sort of systems. Okay. So let's look at, let's take one of those. Let's look at microwave weapons. Now, these systems were, for a very long time, these systems were, their existence was denied. But some countries have been much more open about developing them. Slide 17, please, Alex. This is one of 3 microwave anti-drone systems unveiled at the Zhuhai Air Show by China in 2024. So there are 3 different variants of this. This is the larger one, which is designed to defend from drone swarms. Okay. Now, to understand how microwave weapons work, it's essential to first understand what microwaves are. And microwaves are a form of electromagnetic radiation. And they have a wavelength. And those wavelengths range from around about 1 meter all the way down to 1 millimeter. And they occupy a frequency band that's between radio waves and infrared. So they slot into that sort of area. And they have sort of frequencies from around 300 megahertz, that's 0.3 gigahertz, all the way down to 300, all the way up, sorry, to 300 gigahertz. So there's quite a massive amount of microwave radiation in 300 gigahertz. Now, microwaves are very good at one thing, and that's interacting with what are called polar molecules. And one such polar molecule is water. So when water is exposed to microwaves, the molecules inside it begin to vibrate, and that vibration produces heat. And this is the principle that's behind microwave ovens, obviously. And this is the principle that's also used in microwave anti-personnel weapons, which we can see here at slide 18. So here's this is the American, what they call the active denial system. And it's supposedly non-lethal. So, and what it does is basically heat up the water molecules in your skin and makes it, too uncomfortable to stay where you are. Now, although this system, like here, it's advertised as non-lethal, it can be very harmful. It all depends on the frequency and the focus of the beam. And microwaves can cause a whole range of effects, from mild discomfort to severe incapacitation. Now, currently, there are supposedly no lethal microwave anti-personnel systems that have been shown by any country, but it's pretty certain that several are developing them. Now, in terms of using microwaves against aerial targets like that Chinese defense system, things like drones and aircraft and missiles, the principle works on another property of microwaves, and that is the microwave's ability to disrupt circuitry. I'll just try and do something about the light here. That might be better there. I'm sorry, it's gone from lashing down to bright sunshine. So microwaves can disrupt circuitry. High intensity microwaves can also, they can overheat and damage sensitive electronic components. And that leads to failure in critical systems like cameras and communication systems. It's a bit like putting your phone in the microwave. Obviously, please don't try this at home. But whatever the damage that would occur to your phone is similar to the damage that they're trying to inflict on drones and missiles. Now, microwaves are also quite good at creating what's called electronic noise, and that's very good for disrupting communications. And so the military applications are currently in these two areas, that of crowd control, as we see here, or area denial, and that of electronic warfare and systems disruption. Now, as technology advances, active microwave weapons systems will inevitably gain more and more sort of traction. And the range and the power of these systems will be improved, along with the ability to focus the microwaves in a very tight beam, which will make a very effective weapon. So you've got enhanced precision and enhanced lethality. Okay, so now whilst modern warfare is conducted mostly, it's conducted on the ground and in the air, it's also conducted in space. And the ability to use satellites for high resolution ground targeting has become an essential component of any modern, what you might say, warfare landscape. Slide 19, please, Alex. And these satellites are used for both target identification and then for post-attack confirmation of target destruction. And so the ability to take out an enemy's satellites, especially its surveillance satellites, to essentially blind your enemy, has been, it's long been thought of as an essential component in modern warfare. Also, ballistic missiles, especially the larger long-range ones, go exo-atmospheric, i.e., they travel in space. And so the possibility of interrupting them or intercepting them in that space has also long been a desirable goal in terms of defense. Slide 20, please, Alex. Now, these kind of killer satellites are no longer the stuff of sci-fi. They are real, and they're becoming an essential part of 21st century warfare. And they come in a variety of forms. Some are what you might call stalkers. And these are satellites designed to basically maneuver alongside an enemy satellite. They're communication satellites or observation satellites. And some of these carry a robot arm. And these arms are used to basically dismantle the satellite or the solar panels. So it's a robot arm pulling another satellite apart or other equipment, basically just try and chop it up into bits. Slide 21, please, Alex. And some, like this Russian satellite, carry a fragmentation charge. And this is basically a charge to destroy the other satellite. And some, like say, some can fire lasers to target another satellite. And the most basic are just kinetic satellites. They simply just crash into the other satellite. Now, this is obviously filling, it will fill in any large scale, it will fill the near orbit where satellites are with debris. And it will become increasingly impossible to then get other satellites into those orbits, or perhaps even one day for us to leave if there was a cascade where satellites just started to affect each other. Now, currently the US is also using infrared detection satellites to pinpoint missile launchers. At the moment, missile launchers from Iran. And this gives anti-missile systems time to react before the missile reaches its terminal phase. So they've got a good idea that missile's been launched and where it's going before it, just as it's coming out of its launcher. So this is all part of space warfare. This is kind of space warfare, space detection, anti-satellite warfare. But what about attacking the ground? Attacking ground targets from space. Now, in theory, both killer satellites and ground attack satellites and platforms are banned under the Outer Space Treaty of 1967. But just like the other ones, the other sort of treaties we've talked about, hasn't really been stuck to by anybody. Also, placing nuclear missiles in space was banned at that time. But there are rumors that some countries may have done this. When have these treaties ever stopped countries developing these systems, basically? And one such ground attack that you often hear people, sort of ground attack system that you often hear people quoting are the rods of God. Okay. The real term for these are hypervelocity rod bundles, which we can see here at slide 22. There we go. That's an illustration of one of these rods of God. Now, supposedly, these are only a concept, and that concept involves launching these tungsten rods from a satellite, and the rods are launched at a speed of over 10,000 feet per second, and that's about 5 times the speed of a rifle bullet. Okay, so what you've got there is a tungsten telegraph pole traveling at 10,000 feet per second. So these are kinetic but not explosive weapons. And when the rods hit the ground, they will penetrate deeply through even the most hardened or buried target. And they're essentially these kinetic darts which transfer a large amount of destructive energy on impact. And targets for these rods are such things as missile silos and ships, hardened aircraft shelters, command bunkers, that sort of thing. Now, the whole concept for these actually comes from a science fiction writer, a man called Jerry Purnell, who we can see here at slide 23. There's Jerry Purnell. Not only was Jerry Purnell a science fiction writer, he also worked in Boeing's Operational Research Center. And he originally called this idea Thor when he came up with it all the way back in the 1950s. And this actually then went on to be translated into a research project called Project Thor at the Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland, which we can see here at slide 24. There's the Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And this project was a joint undertaking between the US Air Force and Johns Hopkins University. And the project was apparently shut down in the 1980s. But the US Air Force included hypervelocity rod bundles in its 2003 transformation plan. So it's clear that they continued with that research. Now, I'm not sure how big slide 25 is. Let's look. Can we see slide 20? Alex managed to blow it up. That's okay. So this again, this comes from that published piece by the US Air Force, and also the RAND Corporation published statistics on this. And the Air Force published statistics on penetration and weapons effect for various lengths of rod. So it's obvious these things were tested and continue to be, tested for a long time. And like I said, the RAND Corporation recently outlined rods of God along with other space-based weapons in a publication called Space Weapons Earth Wars. So it's clear that the project is ongoing or perhaps in place. Now, weapons research in space is definitely ongoing. Slide 26, please, Alex. We're getting towards the end now. Now, this is Boeing's X-37B, a project which has been ongoing since 2010. This is a robotic craft basically a robotic space shuttle, and it's undergone several very long missions, most of which, missions of up to 2 years. And most of these missions are totally shrouded in secrecy. And the head of Russia's space agency has said in an interview last year that the XR-37B could be the carrier of reconnaissance equipment and space weapons. Now, the US Space Force has declined to respond to any requests for information as to the nature of what the X-37B is actually doing up there. So it could very well be connected to space weaponry. So that was a brief look at some unconventional or exotic weapons. It's obviously impossible to say just what systems are currently in development or even perhaps deployed, because we won't know that until information is released or until they are used. And we'll end on slide 27, please, Alex. But it's certain, one thing's for certain, is that mankind's desire to find new and better ways of killing and maiming each other will continue, and it will continue as it always has, because this seems to be our nature. I'll end it there.
Okay.
Now, we might not have much time to discuss these things, so I know we're pushing on for time, but yeah.
It's not really much that can be said on that one, only that what we see is probably about 50 years out of date, if not more. We won't see their latest toys, and even in the conflicts that are going on, they will get rid of the old ones they've got before they roll out the new toys.
That is the standard practice, Alex. I remember in the first Gulf War, we had bombs that were manufactured in 1949, and we were dropping them on Iraq. And every weapon's got a date stamped on it. And we were using, like everybody does, use the old stuff first. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Beyond that, like I say, there's not much. So I think possibly best if I go on with my one, and then we might not be able to tie up things in a nice big bow quite the way Ian usually can, but we will discuss them afterwards. They do link together, because I decided today I was going to have another look at false flags and the history of basically what are they, why are they used, and throughout history, what we've seen, the evidence we've seen. So what is a false flag? Go back to 101 effectively. What's a false flag? Well, there was a time when you never heard the term. At one point, nobody ever talked about false flags apart from the conspiracy circles. In the so-called real world, they pretended they didn't exist. They never happened. And even though they have been admitted to throughout history, even though the evidence has been acknowledged on some cases, there was a point at which they never accepted them. And if you talked about false flag, you were immediately a conspiracy theorist. But where did the term come from? Well, we've talked a lot about shipping today. We're talking about the Lloyd's of London and the Straits of Hormuz and the oil. But it comes from, again, from shipping, from maritime. And the term comes from the 16th century, from the literal action of flying a false flag. And it was usually used to get close to another ship or another vessel without them knowing exactly who you were. So it was used by pirates, it was used by privateers, and it was also an accepted military practice. As long as you hoisted your own flag, before you fired. It was considered perfectly acceptable to creep up on an enemy ship by flying either their flag or the flag of a neutral nation and hiding your identity. It's actually where the term showing your true colours actually comes from as well. So, as well as the whole concept of false flag, the whole idea of showing your true colours, or showing someone showing their true colours, comes from the idea of a false flag. Now, there have been, like I said, accepted false flags throughout history. We talked before about the Gleiwitz radio tower, to the point that when I was preparing this, I'm stuck there thinking, have I done this subject? Have I done this subject recently? Because I remember looking for an image of this, but I don't know what my actual topic was at the time. So if I have done this recently, you'll have to bear with me. I'm probably going to talk about slightly different things. But the Gleiwitz radio tower was one of the ones they've admitted to. And if you don't remember, this was the tower that was on the German-Poland border. And in 1939, covert Nazi operatives dressed as Polish soldiers, and they stormed the radio station. They left behind bodies, which turned out to be pro-Polish farmer and several prisoners from the Dachau concentration camp, who they'd murdered and dressed in German uniforms, to try and make out that the Polish had attacked them first as a false flag, to try and get to have the excuse for attacking Poland. And this is known and accepted now as a historical fact. The Reichstag fire, the Finnish attack on the Russian village, or the Finnish attack on the Russian village of Manila, the Mukden incident, the Lavon affair, all of these have a lot of evidence suggesting they could be, and they're generally agreed to have been false flags, but not necessarily confirmed. Whilst the Gulf of Tonkin has actually been admitted. And it's actually been admitted that after the US Maddox was torpedoed on the 2nd of August 1964, the NSA fabricated a second attack 2 days later. And they used that fabricated attack and the reports of that fabricated attack to lead to the passing of the Gulf of Tonkin resolution through Congress, which basically allowed them to go into Iran, not Iran, I've got Iran on the brain, not surprisingly, but allowed them to go into Vietnam and to enter into the Vietnam War. Now, another admitted false flag, which in some ways is quite apt for where we are today, is, and it was only admitted in 2013, was the part played by the CIA and MI6 in the 1953 Iranian coup. Now, the US and UK launched a series of bombing campaigns against mosques and prominent individuals that they then blamed on communist that was sympathetic to the government. Now, when protests grew against these actions, they were deep in it, egging on the protest and leading to, well, pretty much their first colour revolution. But this one they've actually admitted to. They would say the protests were egged on by the CIA, MI6, until the point at which the Prime Minister, which is the guy I'm showing here, Mohammed Mossadegh, was eventually fired, and they could reinstall the Shah as effectively a Western puppet. These are all false flags throughout history that they have admitted to. So the big question, if you're trying to consider something, I guess, to think, is this a false flag, would be, who does it benefit? Cui bono. The removal of this guy allowed the West to install the Shah, allowed them to get their hands back on Iranian oil. The Gulf of Tonkin allowed them to take America into, and to get the public support behind the idea of taking America, and Congress support, of course, into the Vietnam War. The first one, the radio station obviously gave the Nazi Party the excuse to attack Poland. Poland didn't benefit. The Vietnamese didn't benefit from attacking that ship, and there's no way that the elected head of Iran benefited from those attacks. Cui bono, if the other side is benefiting, yes, it could be in some cases an attack gone wrong, an aim gone wrong, but it's also questionable and possible. And especially if the outcome was only likely ever to be one way, that's your first sign that something is a false flag. But there are different types of false flags, and the following classifications are kind of mine. They're not literally, or at least the second one is not literally accepted, but this is how I see them breaking down. Because you can have different types. You can have a staged event, and the staged event, well, the Gleiwitz radio station, they literally attacked the station. They just dressed as the other side. They literally planted bodies to suggest that their own people had been killed. They didn't quite go to the stage of killing their own people, which we have seen in later false flags, but they staged it to look as their own people have been killed. So that was very much what I've called a staged event. Then you have a manipulated narrative. This is kind of the way where you let something happen, or you know something's going to happen, or something happens that you didn't know about in advance, and you manage to then manipulate that narrative, twist things to get what you want. In a way, the Gulf of Tonkin could be considered a manipulated narrative, because there wasn't a staged event for the second attack. The second attack never happened. They just created an entire narrative. You could, in some ways, consider that the third option, but it's more under a manipulated narrative, because they used the first attack, that whether they were waiting for or whether they weren't, and they manipulated the narrative by saying this wasn't a one-off, this was a serious danger, they've attacked twice. They created an entire narrative. The third version is what they call black propaganda. And that's not my term, but they call it black propaganda. So what's black propaganda? It's propaganda which purports to be from one side in a conflict, but actually produced by the opposing side. So if you can see that the person that benefits is not the side that's committed the action, the chances are you could be looking at a false flag. If you could see that and it fits into one of these patterns, it reinforces the idea that you could be looking at a false flag. So I'm not going to go through all the suspected false flags that we have in history, especially not as we're running quite late anyway. But you've got the Pearl Harbors, you've got the sinking of the Lusitania, you've got 9/11, just to pull out some of the bigger ones. Who benefits? Well, Pearl Harbor brought America into the war. The Allies benefited. The Lusitania is something very similar. The Germans didn't benefit from firing on the Lusitania or sinking the Lusitania. 9/11, well, I don't see in the war on terror, I don't see on the future attacks that never even attacked the country that was supposedly attacked 9/11. I see that benefiting in America in wanting to bring laws in. I see it benefiting America in distracting from the 32 million that had just been announced of loss. I see it benefiting America in waging the wars they wanted to bringing in the anti-legislation, legislation that limited the people's actions as well as promoting the war on terror, bringing in the whole of Homeland Security and the whole of people like ICE, which they are now using to terrorize their population. And I know people won't all agree with that, but that's how I see that view. But each one of those, you can see who benefits, and it's not the country supposedly carrying it out. Does it fit into one of these options? Well, Pearl Harbor, it was a staged event because it happened, but it wasn't carried out by the people necessarily who they wanted. You could also consider it a manipulated narrative, though, in a way, because unlike the Gulf of Tonkin, it did occur, but it probably fits that line more because it was more a case of them allowing it to happen. The same argument could be made for October the 7th, of course. It was allowed to happen so they could manipulate the narrative to give them the excuse forevermore for the slaughter and the genocide in Gaza. The Lusitania, again, depends who actually fired on it, but if it was just allowed to be sunk, it would be a manipulated narrative. If it was sunk by the other side, then it would be a staged event, but it still fits somewhere in the thing. 9/11, I would say, is very much a staged event. I don't believe planes may have flown into it, but I don't believe planes flying into it took the towers down. And we could argue all day as to whether that was controlled demolition, which was always my preferred version, or as William presented not long ago, the idea that it was hit by something like a Jew, or maybe multiple versions of those. But it was very much a staged event. So what examples do we have for the idea of black propaganda? Now, when you listen to the subject, it talks about fake propaganda, and it quotes things. The official line, this is the official, well, I don't know if you can call Wikipedia official, but this sort of source, they start quoting things like what they consider anti-Semitic things purported to be from the same side. Now, I don't know that I always literally take them on gospel on that one, because they quote things like the it's gone out my head, the protocols of Sion, whatever the proper name is for that. They quote things like that. Now, I'm not entirely sure that they are black propaganda, but this is the evidence they give. But I'll give you a piece of black propaganda, or what I consider a piece of black propaganda. Oh, I've jumped thing. Let me jump to it. And I would say this was black propaganda. I would also say the disappearing needles is black propaganda. Because, and this is where it gets very personal to people who try to call out the truth. Now, the problem is, and Glenn's just talked to you about Jews. Jews exist. Direct energy weapons exist. They've been working on them. They may have even used them. They may have even used them on Maui. This is not a direct energy weapon being fired at Maui. How can I categorically say that? Because the image was on the internet 8 years before Maui ever happened. Now, it gave some of the description for what it was. I forget now what the description was. It doesn't matter. It may not be what they said it was. It may be a direct energy weapon. What it cannot be, and categorically cannot be, is a direct energy weapon being fired on Maui. But why would somebody say it was if it wasn't? Well, the problem is sometimes people do put out lies. Sometimes people do try to back up what they're saying with lies. And that is a very dangerous and a stupid, if you ask me, thing to do. Now, I'm not saying the people that shared it are at fault, but I think this is black propaganda, because I think it was literally put out to discredit people that said it was a Jew attack, the people that started talking about Jews, because maybe they wanted to use them in the future. Maybe they already had. So I think this is the perfect example of black propaganda, because it was put out by, in my opinion, by the other side, but made to look like it was put out by the Truther movement, for want of a better terminology. And I think the disappearing needles in COVID was the same thing, because they had no need for the needles to disappear. I think that was slightly more selective in the fact that I don't think they necessarily, but they might have done. I don't think they necessarily put out the original comments, the original videos, but again, they might have done. But they were there for us to see, because they could have just injected a saline solution. There were 101 placebos they could have used. Why did the needles disappear? It disappeared for us to make us look stupid, to make us look foolish, to make us look insane. So I think both of those are black propaganda. But to bring it up to date, and to bring it up to date to the current war in Iran, because the thing is, we've been hearing more and more talk about false flags. It's suddenly a mainstream thing. And it was talked about repeatedly in the Ukraine war, and it's being talked about repeatedly in the Iran war, to the point that we're even seeing what, I don't know what you'd call it, a double bluff fourth flag, a double false flag, a fourth flag. But we're seeing them accusing Russia of pulling a false flag when it was something that the other side, that Ukraine did, and they're accusing it of being a Russian false flag when it was Ukraine's action, or being an Iranian false flag when it was America's actions, like the attack on the school, like the line they originally used with Israel and the first hospital they bombed. So it gets even more complicated, but it's being mainstream talked about. So let's bring it up to Iran, and let's take it back to the attacks on the regional infrastructure, the UAE and the Saudi oil refinery and the UAE oil fields. I think they're both refineries, actually, but those two strikes. Well, what did I say we need to ask? Because there's a third one as well. We need to ask if the who benefits. We have to ask qui bono. Well, the response to this was almost the UAE and Saudi coming in, or being angry with Iran and coming in on Israel and US's sides. So no way did Iran benefit from either of these scenarios. Iran could stop oil flowing by just closing the Straits of Hormuz, as it's done. And as we've talked about repeatedly, it didn't need to start bombing its neighbours' refineries. There's no way in which Iran benefited. Does it fit into one of the categories? Well, it happened, so it's not black propaganda, and it's could be considered controlling the narrative, but the chances are that it was nothing Iran did. Its chances are neither of these were hit by debris. The chances are they were literally a staged event. And the third question that I haven't mentioned yet, but will stand up pretty much for all false flags. Did it achieve an aim that wouldn't have happened without it? The Pearl Harbor achieved an aim that wouldn't have happened without it in bringing America into the war. Every one of the false flags in history achieved an aim that wouldn't have happened without it. The Gulf of Tonkin led to them passing through Congress to enter troops on the ground in Vietnam. And these two, well, this was the news articles, or these were tweets, but these were the reports coming in just after these two. And that you had UAE considers taking action against Iran, not something they'd have been considering without the strike. And Israeli PM Netanyahu wants Saudi Arabia to attack Iran soon. It gave Netanyahu the inclination, the argument, the ammunition to call for Saudi to attack Iran. So I think we can pretty categorically say that these two were false flags. And while I can't tie things up, and I'm not even going to try to tie things up in a bow like Ian, it does connect back, because you have the more exotic weaponry that gets used, the more false flags like the one on Maui they pulled, the black propaganda they pulled on Maui to discredit the idea that a Jew had been used. The more they bring out these new weapons until they're ready to admit to them, the more either black propaganda or staged events so they can hide what they did under something else is likely to come about, more we are likely to see. And the big one, news report about 3 hours ago, because I just clicked onto something a moment ago because someone came up with a notification, and Iran is calling the likelihood of the US doing a 9/11 style attack on US soil and blaming it on Iran. So keep your eyes for that one. The fact that they've already been crafting the narrative and repeatedly calling out about sleeper cells in America and in the UK and in Europe, since they've been repeatedly calling all these things out, the likelihood of them doing that doesn't seem very unlikely to me.
Yeah, and I think just as you were actually tying that up into a bow while you were going on, that was exactly the connection I was making. I was thinking, not only can you probably see, and some people believe, that some false flags like 9/11 may have included the use of novel weapons, of new technology, but also in a way, if you just look at something like a directed microwave weapon, that has the ability to make say oil in an oil refinery or in a storage facility basically explode, and then you can use that for whatever purposes you want to do. Obviously you haven't got the element of, oh look, we haven't fired someone else's weapons at you, but they are very useful in the kind of stealth war of destruction that you might want to commit. So there is a connection, and just in the way that there is a connection, special forces have always been used to carry out these kind of deceptive missions. Well, that now you can deploy special weapons that will help you in it. So there is a connection in that way, in the kind of tying it all together in a bow way. But that's fascinating. And we're seeing more and more of these multi-layered false flag kind of events, where it's every side building another layer into it and making counter accusations until the whole thing, no one knows what the hell has gone on anymore, because it's all been shrouded in claims and counterclaims, and then it makes people more vulnerable to believing one thing or another, and that might not necessarily be the truth. So
I mean, I could have brought in things like the I'm still calling the whole women prisoners having their uteruses cut out, the Kuwaiti ambassador's daughter, because it's the same line. And I'm seriously thinking of crowdfunding the idea of buying a new playbook for the West, because they really do need a new playbook.
It's the same one. I mean,
we use the same one since World War II.
Yeah, well, since World War One in my concern. It's the Bosch of bayoneting babies and raping nuns. So that was black propaganda. Very effective in an age where people had far less access to the truth or access to multimedia, if you might. It's just a poster, Oh, look. Oh, Deirdre, must be awful. You know,
I have to admit that was a new concept on me, the whole black propaganda, but you've seen it so many times.
Oh,
It's you've seen it in it's been done in elections. They put out they tell one party will tell you what the other part is saying, and it's never quite what the other part is saying.
Yeah.
It's their interpretation, they're twisting on what the other part is saying, or what the other part has done, and they will twist that. It's I've never really heard the term, but it is, you do see it a lot, and especially in conflict and combat situations again. And like we've seen, like I said, that's why I kind of used the whole Maui example, the whole disappearing needles, because we've had it used on us.
Yeah.
And it's why I get so wound up with people that don't check their facts. Because it's probably, some of these are and openly will be black propaganda. And I'm not talking about somebody who just uses an image that doesn't quite match with what they're saying, apart from when they're saying that images is proof, like Maui. It's people that didn't check out Maui. It's people that didn't check out the other one that used to wind me up was the whole there was a story going around that the WHO had said all 4-year-olds should be having sex.
Right.
And it wasn't true. There was nowhere in what they said. There was a lot of shit in what they said that was dodgy as fuck.
Just to add,
but putting that one sentence in the headline, they ruined our whole argument against it. They ruined every contention, because the first person somebody who wasn't conspiratorially minded would see is, oh, that's nonsense. That's not in there. They wouldn't look about talking to 4 to 5-year-olds about masturbation. They wouldn't look about telling them to discuss their feelings when they touch their genitals. All of this is genuinely in there. But that bit that they put out that they should be sexually active at 4 was never in there.
No.
And it destroyed the whole argument. And it's why it winds me up. And that makes me think that the start of that story was not put out by somebody in the movement. It was put out as black propaganda. I think they've used it consistently against us since COVID onwards.
Yeah, because I mean that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, intelligence and counterintelligence have always operated, but now we've got a new level of operation within the social exchange, social media platform. That sort of that area. And there's always so much rubbish floating around in that area, that if you can add the right amount of critical mass to it, it will suddenly make the whole thing look stupid and ridiculous. And by discrediting one thing, you discredit the whole.
Yeah.
Sorry. And that's, I think that, you know, we're into an age of much more subtle manipulation, rather than just saying, well, you know, they're eating the, I don't know, they're ripping the uteruses out of, which they still do. They still
use that as well.
But there are far more subtle manipulations going on. Yeah. Okay.
Well, as we're up to 4:45, I think perhaps we ought to.
I think. I would like to eat before tonight, and maybe
so would I.
go one or two together. So, it's been good. It's been good.
Our apologies for it being a bit of a long one. It appears that we can't actually control our time when it's just the two of us.
Well, no, we can't. We can't.
But we will be back tonight. There'll be 3 of us tonight, so I think there will be. So you'll be all right tonight. It won't be stupidly long tonight. But we'll be back at 8 o'clock. We will see you then. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
See you later.
Good night.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Oh, good evening. Good morning.
One or the other.
One or the other.
We are the last Jacobites, proud and free, will not be bought nor bend the knee. Like Arbroath's cry and freedom's flame, we rise as one and stake our claim. Oh, side by side, through storm and fight, we stand as one in truth and right. From every shore we answer the call, Clan Jacobite, we rise or fall. It matters not our skin or land, but hearts as one and hand in hand. The blood we share is brave and bold, in woven dreams and legends old. Oh, side by side, through storm and fight, we stand as one in truth and right. From every shore we answer the call, Clan Jacobite, we rise or fall. I am you, and you are me, a thread within this tapestry. For hopes of all, for every name, we light the fire, we keep the flame. No sea can part us, nor the land. Together strong, we proudly stand. With courage, truth, and spirits high, we pledge our oath beneath the sky. Oh, side by side, through storm and fight, we stand as one in truth and right. Raise the banner